Hi, my name is Caleb Major, and this is my story. I guess growing up, people would view me as, a good kid in school. I did fairly well, got good grades, was responsible. I was raised by a godly grandmother. She took care of me. She took me in after my father, he went to prison when I was really young, and I never got to meet my mother, so my grandmother stepped in. God-fearing lady. Her father was a pastor, and so she always kind of taught me the ways. We didn't go to church too much. She was always trying to make ends meet, or gas was a problem every once in a while, but she always made sure that I had the best that I could have with what she could do. And so I began getting involved in sports. I played every type of sport I could: football, basketball, anything that would just maintain my time. And well, it all came to an abrupt end. And when that came to an end, I didn't know what to do with my time. After high school, I moved out. Not getting a scholarship at first kind of took me off guard. As a kid, you always grow up and you think that you're going to be the guy in the NFL or doing something. So it kind of took me off guard, and I began going to tech, and I moved out. So I searched for freedom for so long, and the freedom that I searched for actually became my own demise. I got involved in tech, was playing ball for a short time. Then I started experimenting with drugs, and that's when it all began to fall apart. First off, it's like a social gathering. You guys begin to smoke, marijuana. So it was from time to time, your friends come over, like I said, social gathering, and then after that it began to increase. Shortly after that, I began experimenting with other drugs, harder drugs, and it just started taking me over. And you don't ever realize it, until it's too late. Soon after that, I was experimenting with really hardcore drugs. I was sleeping in my car that didn't have windows, begging my grandmother for gas money only to go buy drugs. Shortly after that, I began robbing people, stealing people, going to stores to steal stuff to return it to get money to get my next fix. And then shortly after that, smoking it, putting it up my nose and stuff like that. I just didn't cut it anymore. I began IVing drugs once a day, and then that wasn't enough. So then I had to go to twice a day, and that wasn't enough. Then I began going to see people and stealing from them. The people I was getting my drugs from wouldn't even let me come in their house anymore. The only time they wanted to see me is if I had money in my hand, and it was still questionable if I was safe to be around. So like I said, I began IVing drugs. I became known around town and grown a reputation as Caleb the Junkie. Time to time, people, they'd catch me knotted out in my car at a store, or even in a graveyard. Just I didn't have nowhere to go, and things were ending quick for me. But you always think you have everything under control until it's too late. Friends of mine began to die off, IVing drugs, and I still thought it was just, it was just them, that I thought I could handle it. It's not going to happen to me. And shortly after that, I started going to jail. My grandmother began bailing me out by selling her own possessions. Everything that she had left that I already hadn't begged her for. She began telling me that I reminded her of my father. And it just kept going. It was a downward spiral. I began getting on probation. I was in and out of jail multiple times, frequently, sometimes within the same week. I was always in the newspaper. The cops saw me drive by, or they saw me sitting in my car. They came up behind me and they requested that I get out, just because of the name that I've accumulated with everything that I've done. So then it all came to an end. I went to a festival in another county, and by the end of the festival, I had pretty much gotten arrested. I just bonded out 2 days previous, and here I am again looking at the same consequences. Trying to hide everything I'm doing, telling my grandmother I'm clean, down to about 125 pounds, soaking wet. My wife wouldn't even let me come in the door, see my own kid. And about that point in time, I didn't really want to. Everything was focused on me and all about me. Drugs was the only thing I began to care about. So, like I said, after I got in trouble up in another county, I came back, and my probation officer, left me a message on my phone that says, "Hey, Caleb Major, you need to come in. We got a warrant for your arrest." And I'm thinking, what am I going to do? This is it. I can't go to jail. I can't. It's not me. I can't do it. So I came in. He goes, "Here's this sheet of paper that you left at an hour and a half away," and somehow it got back to him. Somebody I went with brought the paper back. At the time, I was so mad and infuriated, I just wanted to find out who it was. Didn't care really what happened, the consequences, but I wanted to know how it got back. So I went to see Sean Fry, my lawyer, and Sean Fry's a godly man. I went and talked to him. I'm crying. Said, "Sean, I can't go to prison. I can't. I'm not made for it. I can't do it, and I won't." And so we start reviewing the options, and he calls my probation officer and offers an opportunity to go to Teen Challenge. And I'm thinking, there's no way I'm doing this, but it's better than prison. And they talk, and they go back and forth, and Sean Fry sits down in front of me. He says, "You want to change your life?" He goes, "I'll represent you for free." He's represented me on numerous other cases. And he goes, "I'll represent you for free," because by that point I told him, I said, "I don't have anything to pay you with. I can't pay you. My grandmother can't pay you. She sold everything. They already bailed me out every other time. And just a real hard time." He says, "Well, if you'll do this, I'll represent you for free." So I signed it. The whole time thinking I'm going to go and I'm just going to fake it till you make it. Not have to go to prison for a few years or sit in jail and, just look for the next time to get out and when I can start IVing drugs again. So I told my grandmother, and, she's thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe it'll change. And told my wife, and, just everything started coming into picture. I'm not going to see my kid. Everything like that. And so I went to Teen Challenge, left everything and everyone that was behind me, but that, like I said, they wouldn't answer my phone calls anyway because I wasn't safe to be around at that point. And so I'm going through Teen Challenge, and I'm just faking it as long as I can. I'm thinking, I don't want to do this God thing. It's I know there's something higher, but I don't want to put any faith in anything higher except for myself, and I shouldn't have been putting it in myself at that point in life. So one night on November 10th, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I go to my Bible and I open up, I start reading. I said, "God, I can't do this without you. If you're here, you're going to have to get me through it. I can't do it. I just can't. I got to have you. Show me you're real. Put me to the test and just help me." So we kept going through, and just something connected, something like that, just something moved inside of me. And I came home to see my grandmother on a 5-day pass, and she said, "You changed, You're not the same guy that you were when you left. You're kind. You're the Caleb that, I raised. And, I'm proud of you. And I hadn't heard those words since high school. My dad, he began to clean up because he saw I was cleaning up. He was getting off the hard drugs and stuff like that, and I was spending quality time with my wife and my daughter. And at that time, she hadn't been my wife, but on my 5-day pass when we met, we just knew, and then we got married. And just holding my kid for the first time is what it felt like. You lose your kid a million other times in drug addiction, you don't know what it feels like. What it feels like to hold somebody that's part of you. And so I go back and I'm thinking, I can't do this. I want to go home. I want to be with my family. And he just helped me every step. Every time when I couldn't do it by myself, there was a phone call that came in. I heard my daughter and she said, "Hi, Daddy," and called my grandma, and she's like, "You got this," and she would write me, and all these letters started coming in, and they were talking about how proud people are. And my wife told me about the church, and that was the first time we came to church on the hill, and it just felt right. she's talking about what people were asking about me, and just caring. I haven't had anybody care for a long time by that point, except for my grandmother. And so it was nice. And come home my 10-day. Here I am, I'm just going to see my grandmother crying, just so happy to see you. And, by that point in time, you're so apologetic. You become so desensitized because of drugs. You don't feel anything. When it's a hard state and it's almost you can't get out of it. I couldn't by myself. Then I met my father, my heavenly Father, and it was just something changed, and we just had a connection, me and my grandmother, after that. So I go back and I finish up, and here's the end of Teen Challenge. I'm like, thought I'd never make it. When I went in there, people were saying I wouldn't make it. So there I am standing on this platform, proud that I'd done something, completed something since high school. My grandmother wasn't there, she couldn't make it. But when I got home, she was standing up waiting there for me. 12 o'clock at night, she's waiting to see me get home, and the change that happened to me and stuff like that. And once I got home, just like Jamie Boykin said, I went back, walked into my lawyer's office. They pulled out, they were looking at me and, so proud, and I said, I want to see Sean. Sean came out there, I shook his hand, and I said, thanks for saving my life. Thank you. And so we go to church, and just to show how full circle God goes, as I start coming in church, and I meet these ladies sitting next to me, and soon to find out it's my probation officer's mother. Then we just met, and I'm like, this is crazy. How crazy is this? It's full circle. Soon enough, there was Thanksgiving dinner up here that we had on Church on the Hill. And my probation officer, the one that was going to put me away, takes my trash off. And ever since then, I've promised to serve the one who saved me. And like people say, why? How am I savable? And people question, do miracles still happen? Or was it just way back then? But I know they still happen. My grandmother looks at me, and she sees me, and she says, you're my little miracle boy. Just because she saw the change. So I know it still happens. I'm Kevin Major. I'm a product of God's grace, and this is my story.